Hi everyone, I welcome you back to our channel, Ego Mindset at the Bar. And today we are going to do a video about the 1900 Uganda Agreement, a very crucial topic for your understanding of all the post units of constitutional law. And we are purposely in constitutional history today, and we are going to discuss the 1900 Uganda Agreement in such a way that every person is going to understand it. So, before going into more depth, you should know that during the scramble and partition for Africa, the British got Uganda as one of their colonies, and they officially made Uganda their protectorate in 1894. Now, how should you address the question of Buganda Agreement? Because you may know the content about Buganda Agreement, but the way you're presenting it to the examiner is irrelevant. You should be crucial, you should be keen, because this topic is paramount, sacrosanct, and very important for your understanding of constitutional history. So, in your introduction, I beg you to define what Buganda Agreement is, to mention the signatories of Buganda Agreement, to give the purpose for signing the Buganda Agreement by the British. So, let me give you the reason to why you're studying constitutional history is to relate and trace the history of our present constitution. So, I expect a bright student to discuss the Buganda Agreement in a way that you state the article in the Buganda Agreement, you give the reason why the British included that particular article in the Buganda Agreement. You also go on to give the relevance of that article to Buganda at the time. So you give also some cases that arised as a result to that article. You also give the relevance to the present day constitution. You link it with our constitution. And when you're linking, you should use a speculative language. Maybe, perhaps, it is possible that, it is likely that. So, to dive into it, we are going to first look at what is the Buganda Agreement. When was the Buganda Agreement signed? Who are the signatories? What was their purpose? So, the Buganda Agreement 1900 was the first legal document signed in Uganda. The signatories between Her Majesty's government and the infant Kabaka Daudi Chwa. Her Majesty was represented by Sir Ale Johnston because she was abroad. So that was the reason why Ale Johnston represented Her Majesty. So the infant Kabaka Daudi Chwa had no capacity to contract because he was very young. So he was represented by the reagents who included Sir Apollo Kagwa, Stanislas Mugwanya, and Noah Mbogo. What is the purpose? All that is your introduction. The purpose to why the British signed this agreement with Buganda, not any other province. Buganda was strategically located. You see, even now they call it the central region. It has good trade, and by then its trade was even better. It was an organized kingdom. It had elites. The British saw it as a chance to collaborate with them, as they later did. They wanted to establish their rule from the strong kingdom. Because if you start with a strong topic in your reading, it means the rest will be simple for you to understand. Even the British were so wise. They started with Buganda, the most organized, the most strong, and when these other small counties saw, they easily accepted their rule. Now, we are going to dive into the Buganda Agreement, but we should know that the agreement was signed on 10th March 1900. The parties, we mentioned them, and We are going to discuss these articles in the way I have told you. Let me give you an example of Article 1 of Buganda Agreement. I said you first mentioned the article. Article 1 of Buganda Agreement demarcated the boundaries of the Kingdom of Buganda. What reason did the British have to include Article 1 of Buganda Agreement? The British wanted to stop Buganda's expansionist policy. The British wanted to also get easy administration. So, what was the relevance of that article to the Buganda at the time? Buganda got 2 new counties because its boundaries uh, were added on to Bunyoro and the counties of Bunyoro, Kuyaga and Bugangais. But it, however, limited the expansionist policy of the Buganda. It limited the power of Buganda Kingdom. The jurisdiction of the Luchiko was also limited. If you see the case of Joseph Kazalaine versus the Luchiko, in that case, Joseph Kazalaine versus the Luchiko, Kazalaine was in Bunyoro neighborhood to Buganda, and he started peer pressure telling people that stop paying taxes to the Kingdom of Buganda. Now, when the issue went to court, Joseph Kazalaine claimed that the Luchiko had no jurisdiction to hear my case. So, court held that the jurisdiction of the Luchiko was as far as the boundaries of the Kingdom of Buganda. You see, the powers of the Luchiko were limited. And if you relate it to the present day constitution, I said you should use a speculative language. Perhaps, maybe, because we are not sure, it is likely that it is possible that Article 178, which mandates for districts being divided into lower units, was copied from Article 1 of Buganda Agreement, which demarcated the boundaries of the Kingdom of Buganda. Perhaps Article 177 of 1995 Constitution, the framers of 1995 Constitution borrowed knowledge from Article 1 of the Buganda Agreement, which demarcated the boundaries. If you write your essay in such a way, it means you're working on merit. If it is 100, you will get 100. So let us continue to Article 2 of the Buganda Agreement of 1900. And there it said that the Kawaka and the chiefs of Uganda hereby agree henceforth to renounce in favor of Her Majesty any claims they had to tribute from other states. Why did the British include that article? The British wanted to control Buganda's economy. But as for the Buganda, at the time, they lost their economic independence. So, if you relate it to the present day constitution, you will find out that Article 153 of the 1995 Constitution mandates for the consolidated fund contributed by each district, but use a speculative language. And also, perhaps, the establishment of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development was as a result of Article 2 of the 1900 Buganda Agreement. So, if we continue to Article 3 of the 1900 Buganda Agreement, which says that the Kingdom of Buganda in administration of Uganda Protectorate shall rank equal as any other province. You see now, the British put Buganda at the same footing with other provinces to easily administer it, to stop its plight, because Buganda had pride. It known itself for being strategically located. What was the relevance? What was the effect to Buganda? It led to opposition of the Buganda to the unitary state. You remember the Buganda secession. Buganda wanted to create its own country. The East African Federation, Buganda rejected it because of putting them on the same footing with other provinces. And if you relate it with the 1995 Constitution, you shall say that perhaps the framers of the 1995 Constitution Borrow the knowledge from Article 3 of the Buganda Agreement to include Article 21 in the 1995 Constitution, which stipulates and calls for equality before the law. And if we continue to Article 4 of the Buganda Agreement, it talked about the revenue of the Kingdom of Buganda being merged with the general revenue of the Protectorate. So, here, Uganda lost her economic independence and the British hit Buganda below its belly because now they controlled its economy. And if you were to link it, you link it to Article 153 of the 1995 Constitution, which talks about the Consolidated Fund. So, if we continue to Article 5 of the Buganda Agreement, which states that the laws made for the general governments of Uganda Protectorate will equally be applicable to the Buganda Agreement. But where they are inconsistent, the Buganda Agreement shall prevail. Now, this was like an appeasement. It was largely designed to appease the Buganda, that the Buganda Agreement they signed with them was so paramount. And if you go to Article 2, we are linking it to the 1995 Constitution. Article 2 of the 1995 Constitution talks about supremacy of the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. If any other law, norm, is inconsistent with the provisions of this Constitution, it shall be null and void. And if you go to Article 6, so as long as Article 6 of Buganda Agreement, so as long as the Kabaka chiefs and people of Buganda conform and do in accordance with Her Majesty's laws, Her Majesty will recognize Buganda as Buganda and the Kabaka as the native ruler of Buganda. This one introduced indirect rule. And if you continue to Article 8, which stated that all cases, civil or criminal, of a mixed nature, where there was a native and a non-native, a white and a black person, they were to be heard in the British courts, not the Luchiko. So, this one limited the power of the Luchiko. It limited the power of the Baganda, because they could not take decisions in cases where their people had grudges on whites. So, if you're to relate it to the present day Constitution, we shall say that Article 126 of the 1995 Constitution talks about the judicial power in Uganda. Okay, we are going to continue to another article of Buganda Agreement, and that is Article 9. Article 9 of Buganda Agreement stated that for purposes of native administration of the Kingdom of Buganda shall be divided into provinces and administrative counties. You know those ones: Jabwe, Budu, Ochi, Kabula, Sese, Gomba, Chadondo. Those ones, the British put them into place for easy administration. And it divided the Buganda at the time, if you go to the effect to Buganda at the time. And to link it to the 1995 Constitution, don't you see that Article 77 of the 1995 Constitution is kindly similar, because it stipulates for the boundaries, the creation of districts. And Article 178 stipulates for dividing those districts into lower local government units, but use a speculative language. If we continue to Article 11 of the Buganda Agreement, it talked about the Luchiko as the legislative body of Buganda. The Luchiko constituted of the three ministers and other representatives from several counties. Now, that one gave Buganda power to make their laws, to adjudicate over their cases, but the British put a legal control over Buganda. And if you were to relate it to the present day 1995 Constitution, Article 77 of the 1995 Constitution stipulates for the creation of Parliament. There shall be Parliament. Article 78, which talks about the composition of Parliament. Article 79 of the 1995 Constitution which talks about the role of Parliament as the lawmaking body, used as speculative language. Maybe, perhaps, it is likely that. So if we continue to Article 12 of the Buganda Agreement, it provided for taxation as a means for raising finances and revenue. So the British added that article to put financial control over Buganda. Now, these taxes included the hut tax, which was 4 shillings for every person who owned a hut as a dwelling house. They also had the gun tax, which was 4 shillings for every person who owned a gun annually. So, if you were to relate it to our constitution, Article 152, used perhaps maybe 152 of the constitution, is the establishment of taxation in Uganda. And if we continue to Article 15 of Buganda Agreement, which is concerned with the distribution of land, this one, the British, how do I term it? The British took everything from Uganda because they distributed land. How can a person come into your land and start distributing it to you? They distributed land in their favor. Buganda lost control over their land. Remember, land is one of the major factors of production. If they take land, it means they have weakened you. If you look at the case of Mwenge versus Migadi, and if you go to relate this article to the 1995 Constitution, we shall look at Article 237. It mandates for the distribution of land in Uganda. And if you go to Article 20 of Buganda Agreement, it stipulates for modes of revocation of the Buganda Agreement. If you continue to Article 21 of the Buganda Agreement, which states that although the agreement was written in both Luganda and English, the English document was authoritative and it could be the one to be used in translation. To sum it and to summarize it, the 1900 Uganda Agreement was the first legal document signed in Uganda. We use it to trace our constitution. And if you're answering, give the reason why the British signed it, uh, give the effect to Buganda at the time, relate to the constitution and the relevance today. I thank you very much for watching Legal Mindset at the bar. I urge you to subscribe, share and comment such that we move together. Thank you.